Unit 1. Letters, numbers, and numeral relationships. Listening activity number 14.
The population density of the UK is about 234 inhabitants per square kilometre, which is well above the European Community average of 143 per square kilometre. England is the most densely populated member of the EC, with 364 people per square kilometre, with Greater London having a density, according to the latest figures, of 4,263 people per square kilometre, and Scotland the least densely populated with 56 people per square kilometre, while Wales and Northern Ireland have 138 and 112 people per square kilometre respectively. Now let's turn to the figures for some of Britain's largest urban areas. Greater London, the first city in the list, has an area of 1,580 square kilometres. It also has a large population of 6,735.4 thousand in 1988. Birmingham, in the English Midlands, is 264 square kilometres in area, with a population of 993.7 thousand. Leeds, the largest city in the north of England, is 562 square kilometres, with a population of 709.6 thousand. The industrial Scottish town of Glasgow, with an area of 198 square kilometres, has a surprisingly high population of 703.2 thousand. Edinburgh, Scotland's capital, with an area of 261 square kilometres, has a population of 433.5 thousand. Manchester is 116 square kilometres, with a population of 445.9 thousand. Bristol, on the southwest of England, is 110 square kilometres, with a population of 377.7 thousand. In the Midlands, Coventry is the smallest city in the list. It's 97 square kilometres, with a population of only 306.2 thousand.
Listening activity number 15.
Listen to the tape and write down the numbers in the correct column.
In 1985, there were 6,261 full-time undergraduate students, with 3,472 men and 2,742 women at the university. The distribution of these students was as follows.
Beginning with the field of science, we find high domination of the field by men, with 1,137 men and 616 women enrolling in science.
Next, in the field of social science, we again find domination by men, the figures being 484 for men, 401 for women.
In the field of engineering, the difference is even greater. The number for men is 509, while only 56 women are enrolled in engineering.
In the field of arts, the number for men is 593, and for women it's 943. This is the first field we find dominated by women.
In medicine, there are 306 men and somewhat more women at 336. This is a second field in which women lead.
Turning to dentistry, as you might expect, the field is dominated by men. The number for men is 139, and for women it is 107.
In law and in veterinary science, We are happy to see there isn't much difference between men and women in these two fields. In law, men number 182 and women 171. In veterinary science, the figure for men is 110, while for women it is 104. Listening activity number 16.
You are going to practice some percentages. We use percentages when we want to express a number more simply. Percentage means the number of X per 100. For example, there are 46 students in a class. 23 of them are female students. We can say 50% of the students are female students. Percent is said after the number. Skim the table below. Then listen to the tape and fill in the missing percentages in the correct column. From 1975 to 1985, the percentage of households with one car decreased slightly from 46.4% in 1975 to 45.2% in 1985. However, the percentage of households with two or more cars rose during this period. It is perhaps surprising that more households had a television than a washing machine. In fact, the percentage of households with a television was over 90% throughout the 10 years. There was a steady rise in the percentage of homes with central heating from 30% in 1975 to 60% in 1985. The percentage of households with a telephone showed a steep increase from 51.9% in 1975 to 80.5% in 1985. The number of UK households with home computers showed a large jump from only 2.5% in 1975 to 12.6% in 1985. One of the most noticeable features of this report is the addition of figures for video recorders. 30% of British homes had video recorders in 1985. It seems likely that both video recorders and home computers will become more common in homes in the UK in the future.
Listening activity number 17.
You will hear a talk about British trade in 1987. As you listen, write down the numbers in appropriate places.
Good morning. I'd like this morning to continue our discussion about British trade, and I have brought a couple of pie charts that I'd like you to look at. They give information about British trade by geographical distribution in 1987. The left pie chart is for exports, and the right one is for imports. Now let's look first at the left pie chart, the exports pie chart. You can see the European Community accounted for 49% of Britain's exports trade in 1987, and the other developed countries accounted for respectively North America at 16%, the rest of Western Europe outside the European Community at 10%, and the other developed countries accounted for 5%. These shaded areas represent the developing countries' portion. The larger one is for the other developing countries, except the oil exporting countries, which accounts for 11%, and the smaller, which is for the oil exporting countries, received 7% of Britain's exports in 1987. The last and smallest was Britain's rather minor exports to former centrally planned economies, and this figure was only 2% in 1987. Now let's take a look at the right pie chart, which is for imports. The distribution here is roughly similar. The European Community accounted for 53% of Britain's imports in 1987, and the other developed countries accounted for, again, a large portion. The rest of Western Europe imported 40%, 14% of Britain's imports in 1987. North America accounted for 11%, and other developed countries represent 8% of Britain's imports in 1987. Turning to other developing countries once again, the largest of the two shaded areas is for developing countries other than oil exporting countries, and these accounted for about 10% of Britain's imports in 1987, and the remaining shaded area, which is for oil exporting countries, accounted for only 2% of Britain's import in 1987. 2% also is the figure for Britain's imports from centrally planned economies, as you can see from the lined area in the figures.
Listening activity number 18.
You are going to listen to a talk. Look at the table below first, then listen carefully to the talk and fill in the percentages in the correct column.
Researchers have done some investigation into what young people believe is a woman's place in society. Here is a report on some of their findings. The Chinese are consistent supporters of sex equality, with only 12% of young people believing that a woman's place is in the home. 93% are enthusiastic about sharing the housework, and 85% of them believe that women should be paid the same for doing the same job. 80% think that nursing is a woman's job, and 90% of them believe that mining is only men's work. 13% of Chinese, an extremely low percentage, believe cooking is solely a woman's job, and 7%, even fewer, think that only she should do the washing. For a more traditional view of a woman's place, turn to the Japanese. 52% think women belong in the home. 89% of young people believe that a couple should share the housework and get equal pay for doing the same job. 65% of them believe nursing is a good job for women, and 90% believe that mining is solely men's work. 75% of them believe a woman should do the washing, and 82% of them believe she should do the cooking at home. 80% of Koreans believe men and women should get the same pay for the same job. 39% believe a woman's place is in the home. 75% of them believe that housework should be shared between men and women if both work, but there's almost a complete reversal when it comes to doing the washing and cooking. Here, very few believe in sharing the work. 62% and 65% respectively believe that women should do both. 85% of Koreans believe nursing is a woman's job, and 80